hosting 2017 Rugby League European Federation Congress AGM. I wish you a very pleasant stay in Belgrade, and I hope that you will enjoy this weekend. And now I will ask President Mr. Morris Watkins to address the delegates. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and let me add my welcome to this annual council meeting. First of all, I'd like to thank Predrag Pancic, the Serbian Rugby League Federation President, and all his colleagues for their welcome here today. I'd also like to take this opportunity of congratulating Serbia for its support of many regional initiatives, such as the Balkans Super League and technical courses delivered in neighbouring countries. There is no doubt of the added value which the Serbian Rugby League Federation provides to rugby league. But it's also a special pleasure for me to welcome Serbian Rugby League veteran Miodrag Skognić to the league. He is the former Partizan Belgrade Rugby League captain for 11 years, from 1953 to 1964. And if you have a look outside, there are some very good action photographs of him playing. We've had apologies today from Sally Bolton, who's engaged with her job at Wimbledon. But I'd now like to ask Danica Sanjan to make the roll call and give confirmation of the voting representatives.
So we have no Canadian representative present in the room. Petter, can you confirm that there is only one person still? Petter?
What? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Czech Republic, Gerard?
Yes.
England, Nigel? France, Mark? Ireland, we have. We were supposed to have Des Foy joining us from Ireland on Skype, but I don't believe he's here.
No, not right now.
Okay, I saw his name pop up earlier, so if he does come on,
yeah,
please tell us better, thank you. Italy, Tiziano. Jamaica, we were supposed to be joined by Romeo remotely, but he's not here at the moment. Latvia, they were an apology, want to make an apology. Lebanon, Ray. Malta, Jean-Pierre. Netherlands, Jason. Norway, Adrian.
Yes.
Russia, Andre. Scotland, Bob. Serbia, Edvard. Spain, Andrew. Ukraine, Artur. USA has circulated a proxy, giving the company the proxy. So on any position that the RLEF feels it should support, will determine the USA vote. Wales, Brian. We are quorum. I'm just going to work out the 75% under the resolution.
Yes. I do like joining the conversation. Romeo and David
Agzisa and Romeo. Okay. Okay. Petter, they've joined us successfully, have they? Romeo and David.
What?
Can you see if Romeo Monteith and David Agzisa have joined? And can you type whether they can hear us, please?
Okay. We'll just see.
Okay, so after the roll call, just to confirm that we've had apologies from Polska, Rugby, Latvia, Burundi, Nationale Deutschland, and also Nigeria. So perhaps I could begin by just introducing the top table, remembering that Sally Bolton is not able to be here. So first of all, we've got Belgrade Mark Palank, Vice President.
Yeah.
Graham Thompson and Paul Nicholson. So if we compare our presence today with our numbers in Bray, at Bray we had 9 of 10 full members. This year we've got 9 of 11 present. 3 of the 8 affiliates in Bray, and this year we've got 4 of the 8. 8 of our 14 observers are non-European, but we're pleased to welcome here today Bulgaria, Hungary and Greece. We'd also like to welcome Italy as a full member for the first time. The Vice President of the Federazione Italiana di Rugby League, Tiziano Francini, is present, and welcome to you and congratulations. Italy is a very important strategic nation for rugby league. With reference to the list of members in the agenda, Netherlands, the RL Bond is now an affiliate member, and NRLB Director Jason Brugons and former President Timo Mendes are with us. Welcome again and congratulations. NRLB is the first new member since Spain in February 2015. This emphasised the importance of membership and the stability of the sport and culture. So we urge amongst us hard work on forming clubs and organising championships, and congratulate NRLB for an excellent application and for years of excellent governance and organic growth as observers. Can I also congratulate Wales, Ireland and Italy for qualifying for the Rugby League World Cup, and wish them and RLEF members France, Scotland, England, USA and Lebanon the best of luck in the tournament. Last year we welcomed Jaromir Simeonovic as an observer, and now we welcome him as President of the Bulgarian Rugby League Federation, having confirmed their observer status in April. RLEF has also admitted Polska Rugby 13 as observers in May, and Turkish Rugby League Association will be applying in a month, just requiring establishment of a bank account. And we also welcome Adam Vernon, who is here as an unofficial observer representing Albania. In November, the Rugby League International Federation switched the 2017 wheelchair Rugby League World Cup to France, and we wish Mark Lance and the French Federation the very best for a good tournament and to launch the year's World Cup celebration. And finally, I'd like to congratulate Nigel Wood on being elected for a second 2-year term as RLEF Chairman in November. But he is also here in an official capacity as the representative of England in the Council meeting. So congratulations to Nigel. And also, it's good to see here Rugby League Chief Executive David Cole. So if we move now please to the agenda and the minutes of the meeting that we held. There was that. It was the last meeting, which was 29th of October. These have been circulated, so I'd like to ask if those who were here then can approve the minutes in the drawer. Is the meeting happy with those minutes, or is there anything they'd like to raise? Okay, thank you. Now we have some matters arising, and I think Danny, I'll just ask you to take us through those, please.
Yeah, item 3.1, we were asked after the last council meeting to lodge a resolution amending 2 of the RLEF articles, so we did that and we submitted them to Companies House in line with our requirements under UK company law. 3.2, we have appointed Hayes McIntyre as the RLEF's first auditor, and the full audit report is included as part of the meeting papers and also the annual report. Those of you who are in Ireland, you recall that we had an additional item at the end of the meeting that was raised by the hosts, Rugby League Ireland, because it had not been properly raised, given the 35-day rule that our constitution demands. They were invited to circulate the resolution as a written resolution under the 2006 UK Companies Act. They did so, and the polls closed on January the 5th. We had a 22 vote to 13 against the motion, so the motion was defeated. But we should add that this is a good example of RLEF members setting the direction of travel for the Federation, and we welcome and thank Ireland for raising that resolution. Finally, we have added all of the RLEF Council meeting minutes to the website, and now that the Council meeting minutes from last year have been approved by membership, we'll add the 2016 minutes to the website too.
Were there any other matters arising from the minutes that anybody would like to raise? Thank you. So then if we move on to item 4 on the agenda, which is an amendment of the RLEF Constitution. And this will require, if it's approved by the meeting, a 75% vote. The reasons for the amendment being put to the meeting are set out in the note that is in your meeting pack, and it is it's a special resolution to strike out Article 66F from the Constitution, and the reasons for the board making this recommendation to the meeting are set out in the paper. Looking at sort of the way in which constitutions and articles are drafted in this day and age restrictions are not regarded or blanket restrictions on age are not regarded now as being objective and providing the objective justification necessary. So to bring ourselves in line with the general trend, we're asking the meeting to agree to the striking out of this article from the Constitution, which means that there are then no age restrictions on directors. It's a matter then of capacity and ability to perform as found by the members. So can I have a proposal for that resolution, please? Thank you. A seconder? All those in favour? Are there any against? We're through with that? Yeah. Thank you very much. Now, the next item is to deal with the appointment of Sally Bolton as a director, and the reasons why we're putting this to you in the paper provided is because we should have done it last year, and in the excitement of getting Sally onto the board, we forgot to put it formally to the meeting, and it should have gone formally to the meeting. So what the board is seeking, with apologies to the members for not having brought it forward last time, is in fact a retrospective agreement to the nomination of Sally Bolton as a director. If this is now approved, then she will continue for 1 month, 1 year, and will then have to be considered for re-election at the next year's annual council meeting. So I think this just requires a resolution, just a majority of those present. So if I could propose that to the meeting and ask for somebody if they would second it. So all in favour of this, please? Anybody against? Thank you. Danny, I think we've reached your general manager's report, please. If I can ask you to do that. Okay.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I'll keep my report relatively brief, as there's a full report in the annual report, both from myself and the chairman. I just wanted to start by thanking Maurice for being here. Maurice had another engagement that he was invited to, but he had to turn down this invitation. And this invitation was a fairly intimate audience with the Pope. So Maurice felt that he had to represent and fulfil his duties as RLEF chairman, rather than go and have an intimate meeting with the Pope. So not many of us can say that they've had such an invitation, so we'd like to express our thanks, Maurice, to you. I also would like to reiterate my thanks to the Serbian Federation, led by Predrag Pancic, and to reiterate the point Maurice made about the extremely supportive and valuable role that Serbia plays in a lot of facets. There's a lot of people in this room who have benefited from the leadership role that our hosts play, and as the sport becomes more universally played throughout Europe, we're starting to see other countries fulfil that role. I would say other than the RFL, few countries I would say could give us, have given as much added value as the Serbian Federation, so thank you, Predrag. I also want to reiterate and perhaps reiterate my thanks and perhaps embarrass Tiziano for his leadership of the Italian Federation. Tiziano used to play rugby league in France, in Paris, and I hope Tiziano will not mind me saying that he played with his twin brother Simone, who tragically passed away while the pair of them were in France. And I know that Tiziano is very highly motivated to honour his brother, and I think I speak for all of us in saying that Simone would be extremely proud of the role that you've personally played in Italian Rugby League and to the wider European Rugby League movement. So I really look forward to working with Tiziano and Fiorel in the future. Secondly, Jason Brygons is another gentleman in the room who deserves special recognition. Jason has been leading the Rugby League project in Holland for many years. A lot of us know that it's a thankless task doing what people like Jason and a lot of people in this room do. And I've seen Jason's progress and the amount of hard work that he puts into Dutch Rugby League. And Maurice made the comment of how fastidiously led the Dutch Rugby League is. and that's thanks to Jason building a great team around him, Timo's next to him, but Jason's been one of the key driving forces, one of the unsung heroes of of European Rugby League, and we all deserve to thank Jason for his part. I think the final comment I wanted to make on both the example that Italy and Holland have given us, and a lot of other countries, is that the importance of clubs and club championships in rugby league, in any sport, to be sustainable. Our members have to increase the depth of their clubs and their championship. That way you generate more volunteers, you generate more interest, and to steal our own slogan from the RLEF strategy, play more rugby league, more of the time. And I think rugby league in Europe is moving on to a new phase. We've done a lot of work with all of our members on governance, and now it's really important that that governance work and the clear improvements that a lot of our members have made in the sector of governance is now imparted on your own club members to make those clubs really robust, substantial organisations rather than just teams on the field. And that's going to be a central theme of our new strategy. On that note, I think they're not in the room, but I think I've seen Romeo join. I wanted to congratulate the Jamaican Rugby League Association. In the 2014 and 2015 season, Jamaica played a total of, in each of those seasons, 113 aside rugby league games. And the last season they played 138 games. And they positioned themselves clearly as the fourth highest rugby league nation in the RLEF in terms of participation. So I wanted to congratulate Jamaica and Romeo for his leadership on that particular milestone. Underpinning all of those achievements is technical development. A lot of people in this room know that we're involved in an EU-funded project, the Training and Education Portal, and we feel this is the biggest commitment that the international game has made to technical development. We now have a technical portal that will be able to provide a resource and also some quality control threshold to all of our technical programs. We've also made a big commitment to the notion that rugby league is no longer a sport in the Northern Hemisphere that is played by English-speaking and French-speaking peoples only. We've translated the whole portal into Russian. We're very glad that Andre is here representing the Association of Rugby League Clubs from Russia. And we're also seeking to translate the whole portal into Italian as well. I know that the Serbian Federation has translated a lot of the work into Serbian. So over years, we're not in a hurry, but over years, there's a clear determination to put all of that information, that really fundamental technical information, how the game is played, how it's taught, how it's officiated, the skills, the tactics of the game, into our increasing number of European and international languages. We've also had, on that vein, we've also had discussions with the RLEF technical leaders in Australia, and there's a lot of consensus between us and them about the methods that we're using and the content of the qualifications. So I believe that we'll be able to pursue that discussion with them with the intention that we'll be able to introduce a consistent set of qualifications that will be mapped across to the existing national qualifications that countries like England, France and Australia currently use. A lot of the people who are involved in that technical project are volunteers. Any sport is supported by hordes of volunteers. The vast majority of people in this room are hard-working volunteers that put in countless hours into furthering rugby league's interests. And I'd like to just mention Bosnia and Herzegovina, who are in the room as well. They're a relatively new country to us, and I was speaking to you yesterday, and we're very close to getting a new association with Bosnia and Herzegovina. I also want to thank one of our key volunteers, James. who James sitting there, he's our webmaster. Again, countless hours, doesn't get the praise that he deserves, but he's been an instrumental figure in running our operations in council and also on a daily basis running our social media. We are in the midst of reworking our website, and when we have completed that website, then our team of volunteers, James, George Stilianos, plus my colleagues in the RLEF will be running that new website. We discussed at the board level this morning some of the plans that the International Federation has confirmed. I think it's good news to everyone in the room that we now know that in the 2021 World Cup, which will be hosted by England, that there'll be 7 European berths, which is an increase of 1 from the current set. So that's good news for all of the European nations. I've been discussing very early stages the 2021 Legacy Programme with members of the RFL. That's a really exciting project that is going to be partnered with UK Sports International, the British Council, and the idea is to make sure that we can make a real substantive difference to all of our members over the next few years using the visibility and the expertise that we've got from the World Cup. I'm going to make a confidential announcement now, and I'll be very grateful if the confidentiality of this could be respected. You may have seen an announcement in the press several months ago that the RLEF board was considering reintroducing the Under-19s European Championship. I can confirm, and again confidentiality, that competition will be taking place from 2018 onwards. It's going to be a quadrennial format, so every 4 years. We have 8 participants, and we have yet to determine the 8th participant. The reason being that Italy and Ukraine will participate in a playoff. We have 9 European full members, and to start the process, we invited the 9 European full members to enter expressions of interest. All 9 did. So we're now going to determine that final playoff next spring, and the 18 tournament will take place in Serbia in August. And that promises to be a fantastic tournament, the biggest European youth tournament of its kind, and one that gives us plenty of opportunities to expand, to involve other countries, and to create a performance pathway that will be valuable to all of our members. Underpinning that, we're going to be able to hold elite match official camps and coaching camps with the best European coaches and match officials attending for the whole 8 days of the tournament. And again, that's a wonderful opportunity for a lot of the people who've been supporting the technical direction of the sport in your countries. Future editions of the Under-19s Championship are going to go out for tender. And again, it's the same principle that led us to put the Congress out to tender. We want to increase the European dimension of rugby league. And we will be disseminating tender rules sometime next year, and we'll also be disseminating a consultation on whether to introduce an Under-21s Championship into the pathway. But to repeat, we'll certainly consult with all of our members to get your views before any decisions are taken. Finally, I just wanted to point out the unfortunate fact, perhaps, that yesterday was exactly 1 year since my countrymen voted for leaving the EU in all their great judgment, and I say that with my tongue firmly in my cheek. We've discussed the possible impact of Brexit on the European Federation. We've benefited to the tune of almost €1 million from public funding from the Erasmus Plus programme and from its predecessors. We don't feel that, although we can't second guess what the rules of Brexit will be, we don't feel as though we'll be impacted, because the central point about applying for Erasmus Plus funding is that you have a legal entity in a programme country, a member of the EU. So if the terms of Brexit force us to create a new legal entity in another one of the countries in Europe, that's what we should do. That concludes the report. Bruce?
Now, item 7 on the agenda is something that we've, I don't think, really had before at any of our annual general meetings, and this is something where it will require quite an element of participation from our members, dealing with this resolution, which is going to provide for some amendment to national team squad players in accordance with the RLEF eligibility rule 3.2. Now I think because this is a relatively complex subject, I think it would be helpful before we actually move to consider the resolution from Serbia, if we just asked Danica Sandra just to remind ourselves of where we are with this and what is the background to it, and what this resolution, as it presently stands, is intending to achieve. So I'd just like to ask Danny to help us with this.
So the copy of the resolution is in the membership packs. It states that the Serbian Federation would like to limit to 10 in any 19-man squad the number of players eligible under RLEF eligibility rule 3.2 B, C or D. Now those rules refer to players who are eligible for their country under the parent, grandparent or residency rule. The Serbian resolution goes on to mention that this limit of 10 players in a 19-man squad is subject to specific tournament regulations. So our interpretation of that is that tournament regulations take primacy, and those of you who've been involved in our tournaments, World Cup qualifiers, European Championships, Euro B, Euro C, will understand that we currently have quotas that determine how many domestic quota players teams are allowed to field. And the Serbian resolution goes on to say that their proposition will refer to sanctioned international matches between RLEF members, not including RLEF global events. And the definition of an RLEF global event is one that is determined by the RLEF on a case-by-case basis to be a global event. So, in summary, the Serbian resolution is saying that in any 19-man squad, you can only have 10 players whose eligibility is drawn from a parent, a grandparent or residency.
Thank you. Now, before we consider the resolution, I do understand that there is maybe more than one possible amendment to this. So, is there a formal amendment being proposed to this resolution? Right. Would you like to tell us what that amendment is?
Yeah, please, because you might.
Thanks, Maurice, and thanks, Danny. First of all, I'd like to endorse what Danny said about the great things that are happening in European Rugby League, and I'm quite motivated to be in this room because I've made new friends, and it makes all those hours and years and hard work worthwhile. This is a positive environment, and I think for each of us to move forward and we'll start working together to become a powerful force in world rugby rather than European rugby. We do have a few things that we'd like to perhaps bring to the table, and we talked a lot earlier. And thank you to Serbia, first of all, for making the proposal, because what you've done is make us think about it. And maybe we all talk about things in groups, but we don't think often enough about influencing the future of the game. So, to Serbia for that, thanks very much. It was an interesting debate this morning, very well helped on by Raymond and Tiziano, that took the debate in certain directions, but really made it clear to me that we were all thinking maybe along the same lines of the way we want to go, or the journey we want to go on to make the game more sustainable. And of course, Wales, we have a belief that the game can only be sustainable if you develop your own players and you bring your team through to get personal national identity, to get support, to get sponsorship. And you know, it seems to us it's a natural progression. You've got to start thinking about how many of your own players are playing in your team. And I did say earlier, you know, Wales, up to 21 players we used last year, 13 were D2 players, and proudly 11 of those were Welsh born. And you know, I feel really strong and passionate about that. And we've gone through our pain, as you all know. 2 years ago, you win a game, you were smashed by 38, 40 points by everybody. And there's nothing worse when you're, you know, chairman of an organisation, sit there and watch your team, watch your boys suffer at the hands of some, what I call bullies at the time, because they were beating us. But, you know, it showed the pride we had as a nation, and the pride in the shirt. And what came out of that for us was the fact that we didn't worry anymore about going bankrupt, because we had boys who wanted to play for Wales again, and didn't want to play just for the money. And that was a big motivator towards us. And when we brought John Keane into our squad, he changed the culture completely, because the players' unions disappeared suddenly, and they started talking about homegrown boys who wanted to play for the Belgrade, the Dragons message. And I think, despite the pain, we've come through that, and now, as you know, we've gone 2 years unbeaten, and we win the World Cup, and that's really, really special for us, a small nation like Wales, to qualify for the World Cup, because it gives us another chance to lay a legacy down that we never really left in 2013. To lay that legacy down, we would like to put an amendment forward that would help us to develop and hopefully help Europe to develop. In principle, we agree. We think we should have more homegrown players for the countries. I do believe, though, it's a massive step to go from 4 to 10. Because I feel for Scotland, I feel for Italy, I feel for, you know, there's going to be a situation where maybe that is a big step to go at this stage when we're all still developing nations. So, the Welsh Rugby League moves that, and I'll read this, I've written it down, we were going to put it on there, but I've written it down. Welsh Rugby League moves that in any 19-man squad for matches between RLEF members in official tournaments run by the RLEF, and this includes World Cup qualifiers, there must be a minimum of 6 players that qualify for the domestic quota rule. Further to that proposed amendment, the Welsh Rugby League would refer to the committee a review of the domestic quota rule. Now obviously that's slightly different, because one of our beliefs is that if you want to play Aussies in your team, or a heritage-based team, or whatever you want to do, that's fine, I haven't got an issue with that. I do have an issue though with people just rack up for, or roll up for a World Cup qualifier. So if we can do something, let's be consistent about what we do it, and put it right across the board. And if you're going to put a new rule in, let's think about moving forward slowly, put another 2 players on there that should be part of your domestic quota rule, and think about that for every game we play. So, I guess that's just about all I've got to say, and thanks for listening to me.
So, Danny, I think looking at the proposal we've had there, would you like to just explain the difference between the two proposals, please, so there's been no uncertainty about this?
Yeah, the clear difference is that the Welsh amendment makes reference to official tournaments run by the RLEF, which is the biggest departure from the Serbian proposal. So currently the RLEF has a rule at European Championship and World Cup qualifier level that in any 19-man squad the country has to name 4 domestic quota players. So the Welsh proposed amendment would increase that by 2. The RLEF have discussed this at length, and we've discussed it at length with a lot of our members. And the 2 words that kept becoming evident to us in this discussion is proportionality and responsibility. You as administrators, you have to look after your national interests of your organisation, but equally we all have a responsibility to look after the interests of rugby league. So the RLEF, so just a point
go
of,
ahead and finish.
if you have a point of clarity, then
No, I just want to have a clarification about this motion from Wales.
yeah,
Because is the definition of DQ, we need to know exactly what you mean about DQ and maybe modifying or directing this interpretation of DQ in a certain way for the development. And then I see including World Cup qualification. Does it mean there is going to be an involvement from RLEF and including all world about this kind of proposal? Am I correct, or I missed something?
no, the current situation in International Rugby League is that the RLEF has a rule for domestic quota involvement for World Cup qualifiers. That already exists. Italy was yeah, but it exists, and Italy was already subject to that.
Yeah, I know.
So the Welsh amendment is to increase that by 2.
Okay, but for all world?
No, we do not have the authority to dictate to the world, but we have always, since, I think I'm right, Graham, in saying 2003 had a domestic quota rule.
Yeah, as the European Championship Director, I brought in the first ever domestic quota rule in 2003. Unfortunately, in 2008, the RLEF declined to use it at the World Cup. Some of the Asian Pacific nations are not happy. We've always maintained this.
That's my concern. I think this is, from my point of view, it's a very good step forward to raise up the domestic competition and the development all over the country. But it should be valid for everyone, not just Europe.
But currently it is not for everybody. Currently we have the RLEF rule that we introduce, and we have underneath World Cup qualifiers and underneath European Championship, we have a quota that, as far as I know, is well supported by everybody at Euro B and Euro C. So in Euro B you have to have you can have a maximum of 7 non-DQ players, and in Euro C you can have a maximum, I think I'm right in saying, of 4 non-DQ players. So that is to ensure that the lower down the tiers you go, the national team is more representative of the actual rugby league operation in the country. The actual wording of domestic quota is not in our gift or our remit to discuss today, but as Brian has added as the last line there, that we could defer the reworking of the domestic quota rule to committee and form a group of the peers in this room to discuss the rewording of it. I think we'd all agree that it's good practice to review any organisation's regulations periodically. We last reviewed the domestic quota rule in 2012, so it seemed appropriate that we were to review that as well, because I know there are a lot of different views about what the domestic quota player is.
We discussed today and this morning during the meeting, and there is a few ideas to for the development and to move forward with new rules and stuff. My only concern is about creating two different situation of one for in the North Hemisphere through RLEF that works for the development, and a static world on the South Hemisphere with the old rules. I would not like to have two different systems, one for Northern and one for Southern Hemisphere. This is my only concern, and from what I understood, I hope correctly, is going to create two different ways to interpret the eligibility and domestic quota rules. And
we've already got the rule, but we're debating together in a second.
Well, no, I want to discuss it first.
So I think Bob had a question.
Mr. Chairman, just a point of clarity. To which age groups does the proposal refer to? Is it purely the senior team, or is it under 19s, possibly future under 21s, under 16s, or is it purely the...
I would say by the wording that is in front of us, it would refer to all official competitions. Judging by that word. Sorry?
What we're asking is actually the present rule to be increased in number. Does it presently apply?
Well, we don't have any youth competitions, so
We haven't in the past.
No.
I think by default it always happens. The age group is much more likely to be people from the nationals.
Has anybody else got any?
Mr. Chairman, I'm just confused about the inclusion of world qualifiers. As far as I'm concerned, I don't think it's going to give more confederations a change the rules pertaining to international company, international federation. From me, it's too simple. Fundamentally, the RLEF is going to play its gift to bear in terms of its own competitions, not competitions.
we have currently got a domestic quota rule that runs in World Cup qualifiers, and I think it ran in the European ones, yeah, all the ones that we ran in the previous World Cup and the World Cup before that, I think, didn't it? Yeah, so we do have that rule. It doesn't seek to vary. It only seeks to vary the number of players, rather. Yeah, but we currently have a rule that you have to have 4, but they're saying 6. But the rule exists. The numbers were agreed before my time, really.
Well, I think what you're saying is that the rule is already here. If we were to pass it here, we'd have to then, for the World Cup qualifiers, come and take it to the RLEF and ask for their agreement.
Well, if Nigel, what you say is correct, then the mood or the vote here would have to be carried back to the validity to the so. But I will need to.
For instance, under the qualification criteria for 2021 we discussed, there may be the possibility of matches between different parts of the world. We can have different qualification criteria.
This is the point.
I thought this was a European initiative for European tournaments.
But that amendment says between RLEF members. So in that specific example you give, where it was South Africa against someone in RLEF, it wouldn't count.
Danny, just not to be hypercritical, but European Federation is an association where you can join being a member. So is International Federation. The worst case, I don't agree. I gave up my membership from RLEF and I go through RLIF, so I can have different rules. That's, I think, this is the big problem about this, having 2 different rules over this domestic quota involvement for international games.
If you did that, you would not be able to play in European competition.
No,
and also, the point is that the rule exists.
It's not the case, because I'm in favor of increasing numbers. Having 6 is very good for me, so you can attract more people from your domestic country and reward if they are going to follow all your structure of development. I'm very happy about these increasing numbers. But the problem is, why creating 2 groups? That's the point. Two laws that makes
But there already are two different sets of rules. We have World Cup qualifiers that we've run for the last 8 or whatever years using the domestic quota rule. You yourself have played in it. So there is no, this proposed amendment wouldn't change that at all. It would just change the number of players.
Yeah,
That's
but
it.
it is the point though that's coming from the RLIF side is that the current rule was approved by the RLIF in relation to World Cup qualifiers. Hence, if there's any proposed change, that would also need to be approved by the RLIF.
But I don't know what happened with the World Cup qualification process in Asia Pacific because I'm not aware. But there was a domestic quota included or not?
Yeah.
Yes? How many?
No. I think the point you make is and that to me is one that needs to be clarified. So what I'd like to do, just to keep the debate flowing here, is there anybody else who'd like to say anything in relation to the amendment or even the original proposition?
Mr. Chairman, committee, fellow members, discussed some of this morning. I'm in Scotland, I'm absolutely in favour of what Brian is trying to do in the direction of travel in terms of strengthening the domestic game. But just for consideration, just to widen the debate more publicly, quotas are already in place, and at the moment I've not seen anyone provide any evidence to me that those quotas are damaging domestic development. If I take Scotland as an example, the Scotland squad, as you know, been very successful over the last 12 months, and it's risen them to 4th in the world. That has had a major impact on the domestic game for us. 18 months ago, Scotland Rugby League was struggling at domestic level. There was only one club really that I would call stable, and it was been really difficult to generate the interest at club level. The success of the national squad, utilising the current quota system, has been such that we've been inundated with youth in particular. Our under-19s, we've had more turning up than ever before in great numbers. Our student trials, bear in mind the Student World Cup is in just a couple of weeks' time, stronger than ever before. And last weekend we ran an under-16s development day, and again it was 30 young lads turned up to that, first time we'd ever run it. And to me that's really productive, and it's all off the back of the success of the national sport. In addition to that, again on the back of the success of the national sport, we persuaded the sports governing body in Scotland, Sport Scotland, to fund the development officer for a period of 2 years. That is a major step for us because that development officer can then get into schools. We're running a schools training at the moment, and that's going to continue. So it's actually the success on the current quota has led to success at the most junior level. Now I personally am absolutely in favour of what Brian's saying. We need to increase the domestic side, but we're not there yet. We are still capitalising off the back of the national team's success, and just for everyone to consider. We've also got an awful lot of media coverage off the back of it as well. And we talked this morning about communication, and we talked at great length about the importance of the media, TV in particular, but we certainly benefited from that. You know, drawing against New Zealand last year was unbelievable in terms of what it did in the press for us, and that has helped generate an enormous amount of interest. I personally believe as well that the development of the domestic game is a national responsibility, and although the quota system is there, you don't have to stick to that quota. You can have more domestic players in, it doesn't have to be only 4 for us, it can be more. And what I'd like to see from a Scotland perspective is as we progress and as we develop the youth who become more senior players, we can gradually introduce more and more domestic players. And I see that as a strength for Scotland, rather than necessarily being imposed on us at this stage. I don't feel we need it as a rule imposed on us. I think we can deal with it nationally. And then lastly, the fact that it relates to all age groups as opposed to just the senior team. Now that could have an impact on us in Scotland Rugby League, because we tend to attract people into the game 16, 17 years old at the moment to play for our under-19s. The very good players often then go down to the academies in England, or they go to college, because in Scotland you finish school at 17, or you can't finish school at 17, haven't done your exams. So at 17 and a half, you could be going down to university. And the guys who've come to us to experience rugby league and decided that they like it, then go to an English university where rugby league's played. So potentially, we couldn't have someone who is born in Glasgow, having played potentially for Scotland under-19s, maybe in 2 games, then goes to university in England. We couldn't count them on the domestic quota, which I think is unfair, personally. So that could have a detrimental effect on us at junior level. It might not, but it could. It's worthy of consideration.
Is there anybody else who'd like to say anything in this debate?
So, Paul, can I ask a question there for who then the men asked that the domestic quota rule is, definition, is reviewed? Would you be proposing that somewhere or in the country is part of domestic quota?
I think so. I think if you're born in a country, you should go play for that country and be classed as domestic, regardless of whether you go and play somewhere else. You're a domestic player, you're born in that country.
So it encapsulate that situation, but it will also cover the very, very few situations where someone spent the first 2-3 years there and then left by family circumstances to live somewhere else. There's not many of them, I don't think. Just looking for how people wanted to consider that situation, how it might be captured.
Petter, does somebody want to speak from...
If
Can
somebody...
I please speak?
They can speak, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Steve from Hungarian Rugby League Federation here. Can everyone hear me? Sorry. Yes? No?
Loud and clear.
Maybe? Yep, alright, cool. Sorry for this background noise. I'm in the middle of the city on a Saturday night in Sydney. So, I just want to clarify one thing firstly. This proposal is only applying to actual tournaments, so one-off standalone test matches just organised as a friendly exhibition game will not be affected. Is that correct?
On the amendment, yes. Given the amendment, yes. Friendlies will not be affected.
So, they won't be affected. Excellent. The next thing I wanted to talk about was, we're all talking about the idea of making a World Cup, and it's great to make a World Cup for publicity and so forth, but the state of the game, I mean, for any of the nations that we've got anywhere in the world to break into the top 3 is a long, long way off. My personal view is if we want to encourage domestic development, we should be looking at expanding the Euro B and Euro C competitions to the point where there's no funding for poorer nations that don't receive funding, and I get that if they're not full members, they should not receive funding. I understand that, the money's just not there. However, at the moment, for a nation like Hungary to participate in Euro C, we have to travel to the Netherlands, for example. We can't afford to do that, even for one of the legs of the tests. What we should be able to do is have multiple Euro B or multiple Euro C tournaments that are organised by local nations, surrounding nations, that meet the select criteria classified as a Euro B or a Euro C tournament. And this would actually encourage domestic participation in domestic test matches and allow neighbouring countries at similar levels of development to help each other grow. Did that all get through?
Any other comments from the floor, please?
Can you
Just have a word?
Yeah, David Axisa from Malta.
Hello, thanks Danny. Can everybody hear?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. My audio hasn't been the best, so I just want to clarify with the amendment. Steve from Hungary asked a question. Would that would the amendment affect self-organised one-off test matches? So for example, if Hungary wanted to play Malta and organise it themselves, would that quota still stand?
No, the amendment refers to official competitions.
Official competitions being, okay, so Euro Championships and World Cup qualifiers.
That's right.
Okay. All right, yep, that's fine with me. I don't have any other questions. I had a big statement to read about 500 words, but I think yeah, if it doesn't affect one-off test matches, I don't think we'll have a problem with that amendment. Thank you.
Sorry guys, I just wanted to say one simple thing to you. Because I understand, you know, it's just our view in Wales, it's the way we want to go forward. But what I want to say is, this makes little difference to your heritage players, does it? Very little difference. In fact, if you have 6 homegrown players in the squad, it still allows you to have 13 heritage players out of 19. So you still have the opportunity to strengthen the team which way you ever want to. All we are saying in Wales is, we think it's a bit too big a step to go from 10 homegrown players, but 6, I believe, within a squad of 19, gives you plenty of scope to still develop the game in the country and give immediate interest in New Zealand players, or Aussie players, or heritage players from anywhere in your squad.
Are you still there? Can't hear you.
Let's just not focus on the 6 for a minute. Let's think about the 13 you could bring in. It doesn't really have a big effect, other than on newer players and newer nation also. If you go for funding, I can go to Sport Wales for funding.
There's no sound.
Can you speak here, Brian? Because then everyone can hear you on that.
I think I said it all. I'm going to start this, so what I was saying effectively, if I go to Sport Wales to get funding, if I go to Sport Wales for funding, I've got 2 Welsh players in the squad, and the rest are Aussies, English, or whatever they may be, heritage players, there's no chance of me getting funding for Sport Wales, and it'll be very similar in Scotland, I believe, or Ireland, or anywhere else. If we focus on the opportunity here, it is about growing the nation, and you will be there in 2 years' time, there's no doubt about that. Well, we know that. You have a much stronger squad because of what you've just said. But the fact is simple. You can still bring 13 heritage players. They can be all Aussies, they can be all Kiwis, they can be all English if you want to, in that squad, and we can do the same in Wales. Not to say we want to do that, but we could. Now, the bigger opportunity for me is, it takes a little bit of the pressure off some of us to have to strengthen the squad because other teams are using more and more and more Aussies or Kiwis or whatever you talk about. You have to make this game sustainable by developing your own players to go into the future. And examples of this have been done in the club game, haven't they? You know, Crusaders, we had the Crusaders. They went right through the leagues into the Super League and ended up going bankrupt because they were full of Aussies. There was a good legacy left behind because we had an academy system in there, and we came up with 2 semi-professional teams. But you know, the game is littered with, and let's hope Toronto doesn't go that way because I love what they're doing. But the Crusaders was Toronto 7, 8 years ago. But they went to the wall. It's got to be sustainable. You have to have crowds, you have to have support, you have to have interest in your boys. And frankly, 2, 3, 4, 5 quality Australian players coming into the squad will get interest. But when you're filling it full, if you've got 15 out of 17, you're not going to get your supporters come to watch those guys playing for Italy or Wales or Scotland or Ireland. They want to see Italians, Scottish, Welsh boys on the park. And, you know, that's when the media smoke will really get behind you. But we are not at the stage, none of us really yet, to challenge for the top 4 or the top 6. We all know that. We all want to be there. But the facts are, the Southern Hemisphere is running away with it. But they are also dominating what's happening with us. Because they are pulling in Fijians, the Aussies, they're pulling in Tongans, they're pulling in all the islanders to strengthen their side, so those Aussies that can't get in are coming to us. So the game is being dominated by Australian players. That's not developing the game nationally. We have to develop our own nations, and this is a small step forward. Honestly, in my opinion, 2 extra players is a small step forward when you can still put 13 out of your 17 can be heritage players.
Right, would you consider tweaking your amendment slightly so that the 6 is parents and grandparents, but if you're born in a country?
Well, I think we had a discussion on that before, because I do think that's nonsense. If you were born in a country, I mean, for example, if I was being good enough to play for England, there's no way you'd put me in an English shirt. Irrespective of, because I'm a Welshman, and I think if you're born in that country, then you should be able to play for your country. It makes no sense that if you move out of it for whatever reason, that you're not eligible. Because born in the country is born in the country, and it should be a completely different thing for me, Bob. So I agree with you.
Yeah, so the 6 is either born and played 5 games or technically born. As long as you're born in the country, you count from that 6.
But that depends on any rewriting of the domestic quota rule. Currently, the domestic quota rule doesn't include all of them.
No, you can amend what you've written here, because B, C, and D is there.
Are we talking about the amendment or the original?
Yes, the amendment.
The amendment only doesn't include B, C, and D, it includes domestic quota players. So it's slightly different to the Serbian main motion.
But if you could include in that 6 players, including birthright, so domestic and birthright equals to 6.
I think that's a good challenge.
You could amend it without touching what the domestic quota policy is.
Yeah, would you like to say to us? Come here.
And it simply means if you're born in a country, you play for that country, regardless of where you play your league.
Yeah, I mean, people can play for that country if they're born there anyway, but not to conflate with the domestic quota.
Okay, with the RLEF board's position, after the topic was raised in Brad, they went back and did some research onto their heritage players and where they want to be and how the direction of the game's going to go. When they saw that in 2 generations they're going to have very little Australian players to select from, they started to think about this rule. They're in support of the rule, but they said, well, it's too early for us to jump from 4 to 10. So they're saying we need to go up incrementally by 2, 4, and reassess it every few years to see where we stand. But we can minimise that gap, we're able to compete as well. So Lebanon's position, they will support the Wales amendment and actually will second it.
Sorry, Steve from Hungary again. Can I speak for a second? Steve from Hungary again. Would I be able to speak for a minute?
Yeah.
Outside of a strict quota, has anyone considered a point system? So rather than having exactly 6 heritage players, we look at the standard of players. So if teams are in a position where they can't put together a full domestic side, it doesn't mean they can put together a whole semi-professional heritage side, but you start looking at discounting points for domestic players, high points for professional players, 0 points for country-born or developed players that have gone on to play professionally in foreign competitions. I've got a typed out version which Luca has there, which you'll be able to hand around. But in short, what it has in there is, for example, if you pull an NRL or a Super League player out who's a heritage player, you get 20 points and you've got a 100-point cap in what you have to field a team. If you field then a domestic player, you get -5 points. So if you want to go and field 4 NRL heritage players, you would then have to supplement them with a number of domestic players, and you would be able to throw in some very low-level heritage players to make up the numbers if need be. But at least that way, if there's a country that it evens out the competition, it's not saying you can't pull 5 or 6 professional players, but you could go ahead, for instance, I think it's 10 points I put in there for a state cup or a championship player. So you could field a team of 9 championship players and supplement the rest of the team with domestic players. And it's still over a 6-person quota, but it's still encouraging domestic participation. And by getting these domestic players playing with semi-professional and professional players, it's going to help develop their skills and raise their standards as well. And it allows teams to actually be able to play with numbers based on the level of the heritage player that they're drawing.
Well, this is very much a whole new proposal, but obviously something for consideration. Could I ask Serbia if they would like to sort of say a few words here, because after all, you started us off on this.
I would just say that we will vote for Welsh amendment. We believe that we should go step by step at this resolution. So for next year, for next couple of years, we can reach that number we suppose now. Thank you.
Well,
Can you clarify?
yeah, come.
No, just need to ask a question. Can you clarify the domestic quota?
I think that discussing the detail of the domestic quota rule is a separate issue because it's quite an extensive rule, and Brian's amendment has already said that we should refer it to committee to discuss it amongst the peer group afterwards. But in short, the current rule states that you have to be a product of the country's youth system, or you have to have played 10 matches in that country's domestic championship. And if you haven't played 10 matches, because I know that in countries like Malta you don't have that many opportunities, you can't have had played rugby league in another country. So the ethos, the spirit of the rule is to have players who are playing in that country's domestic championship and contributing to their championship.
And which tournaments would be affected by this rule?
Official RLEF tournaments, so Euro B, Euro Championship, Euro C and European World Cup qualifying events.
Okay, so that closed comments for the moment. Thank you. Well, obviously an interesting debate, but also it has thrown up a number of questions here. If we deal with this on the basis of what we've, a proposal and then an amendment to it, it would be appropriate for us to take a vote on the amendment, and if the amendment succeeds, then it goes through. If it doesn't, then we would then move to a vote on the original proposition of Serbia. From a personal point of view,
withdrawn because Serbia are backing the amendment.
well, it's there. Just hear me out just on this one for a moment. It does seem to me, though, that there is a number of issues arising on wording and the capacity of the RLEF to push forward on a much wider front this particular rule. Now, the suggestion from Wales was that we should, for example, review domestic quotas. I don't know whether the meeting, and I've not discussed this with my fellow board members, would feel it appropriate for the board to do some work on this, taking into account the observations that have come from the meeting and also from Skype, and then come forward with a revised proposition, which could be passed, but we wouldn't need to wait until next year. This could be dealt with other resolutions at an earlier date. But I just throw that out as a possible solution. Otherwise, we'll proceed with the voting.
Chairman, that's an excellent solution. I think from Rinda's perspective, the support of the direction of travel, I think it's the right thing to do. But I think that as Annie was observing our board meeting this morning, it's very clearly that the only jurisdiction that RLEF receiving was on RLEF organised competitions. We've had 3 times from the general manager that we feel was worth support. And I don't think that if this organisation didn't mind pushback, you could end up voting something that then would not get through RLEF.
But if it's passed in this group and it doesn't go forward, then we're all in agreement that's why we forward. We put it to the RLEF and they have jurisdiction on it, so there's no issue.
Yeah, I must say, as chairman of this group, I wouldn't like to start working off that basis, because I like to put forward things that I know are correct from the point of view of the proposition, as opposed to not having done the necessary research on it. I remember very closely getting done to football, how the Premier League got formed, because the Football League decided to go off on a tangent of its own, and ended up in a real mess, and hence it allowed the Premier League to take effect. So I think, but is a suggestion from me as chairman, obviously you are in control of this.
I think it's an excellent suggestion, but I think the work should be based on Brian's proposal, clearly, at the heart of it.
Well, let me suggest an amendment to that we take a vote on Wales's amendment, subject to satisfactory verification that it can be put forward to the RLEF on that basis, failing which we come back and with a revised set of work.
Again, point of clarification before we vote. We discussed there whether or not the 6 is going to be domestic quota and birth rate. Yeah. Which one are we voting on? Is it as the amendment stands, which doesn't include birth rate?
Have to ask the proposer.
I will ask them that because I frankly think that birth rate should be enough to get you secondary.
But no, but this is about birth rate counting as domestic quota.
Yeah. Counting as part of that state.
It's not really
Well, I can only speak for the current wording of the rule that doesn't include domestic quota. And so I think the point of your additional phrase at the end was to refer the domestic quota, which is a broader subject, to committee after the meeting. Yeah, to debate it.
Chairman, would the original proposition also be subject to RLEF confirmation?
I don't think that was. It was a very limited, it was not as wide as the Welsh, from the point of view of impact.
It
didn't include competitions.
I think as we're proposing an amendment to amendment, could I ask Cerberus if they're content to move on that basis and to withdraw your proposition? So, are you happy now? So have you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just 6 players now, then.
Yeah.
Step by step, we will step then. Next couple of years.
I'm still not clear what I'm voting on, because if you're saying you're now going to have a look at domestic quota to potentially change what that is.
Well, no, we could.
That's a separate issue.
Yeah.
But you're asking me to vote on the current quota, but the revised quota, if there is one, once it's on the debate, might change my opinion of this amendment.
Well,
I don't see how we can vote on this without having to look at the DQs first.
well, I think we've got an amendment, and the idea was, well, the intention was to vote on that subject to the ability to carry it through the RLEF in that format. If we have to go to the RLEF for permission, then that wouldn't be my view that we should go like that.
Well, I would just say that we should be voting on the amendment to the resolution. If you're against it, then you vote against it. But I think it's been properly.
I think I was extending it proposing we extend it a little bit. I'm happy to withdraw that, but subject to it being that it's within our power to do so.
If Brian is happy, I mean, amending it to take into consideration the World Cup qualifiers being the RLEF's competitions, and if you were willing to amend it to add that, like a line said, subject to International Federation ratification of World Cup qualifiers,
or subject to complying with RLEF.
Danny?
I think one of the things that we talked about earlier was how we're going to make this work in a global perspective. That's one of the issues we have. I think, Brian, we totally, I think at RLEF, agree of strengthening domestic quotas wherever we possibly can, and totally agree with strengthening domestic competition. That's why RLEF changed the eligibility rules earlier in the year. One of the things was to extend that to, in terms of residency, to a 5-year period. As you know, that strengthened that side of it. The second aspect of it was to bring in, as a proposal for the future, financial incentives for homegrown players, and to bring that in. The issue that I think we have just on timing, in terms of just the inclusion of those words, including World Cup qualifiers, is if we just think that through, that would have to get referred back to the board, so it wouldn't go to the AGM this year now. It would go to the AGM in a year's time, and the World Cup qualifiers have got to be completed for 2021 by 2019. So I can't see how we can change that in this cycle. That's the problem I think we do have. And I think that's why Morris's suggestion that we look at the broader basis. If we took out, including World Cup qualifiers initially, but make that part of the full review, I think that would definitely work. I think it's just a timing issue, as I see it, that we have got to try to get that through in the interim period. And I think that we have got, and what I'm hearing, which I think is very pleasing in this room, is almost total unanimity, that we need to strengthen the incentive and the perspective of playing homegrown players. And that's what we all want out of it. So that was just the timing issue.
So, given what David has said, this does throw a particular emphasis here. We're going to try something?
Yeah, I'm happy about all this proposal, but I think there are half proposals if you don't define in a better wording, what do we mean about eligibility and domestic quota. I think is approving an amendation about this that is for development without identifying what domestic quota is, and maybe make an implementation about eligibility and stuff is voting half thing. This is my point of view.
Well, I think, given that intervention, giving also David an intervention, I'd like to suggest that we agree that or a resolution from this body that we hear the proposal that's being made. We understand that there is general consensus to move forward as we've discussed, but that the board should be instructed to review what's been spoken about today, and that we come back with a resolution or with a recommendation which gives sufficient definitions of points. And as a lawyer, I agree with you. I'm struggling a little bit with some of these. That we settle on the correct interpretation, and also bring forward a recommendation which doesn't necessarily need to wait until next annual general meeting, but can be brought forward at the appropriate time, so that we don't run into difficulties with the timing of World Cup qualifiers and the like.
This is fun, isn't it? First of all, I wasn't aware that we would have to go to the RLEF. I thought we were just amending something that was already in place. So my apologies for that. And since I'm afraid to challenge that. So on that basis, maybe we should be thinking about what we are capable of doing ourselves. So on the basis of that, why don't we just look to move this to the 6 players, and then come back again when we've got more time to take it on to World Cup qualifiers within a better time scale. I'm happy to do that. Take the World Cup outside. Yeah, because it's a step forward. I'm happy with that.
Oh, bear in mind, this wasn't it was Serbia's idea, which we think is very, very good. Which we think is very, very good.
So,
and I agree that these boys will have taken on stronger and stronger as the years go on, and we've got to get a focus on that.
is it fair, Brian, to say that your original wording stands, but you strike out
World Cup,
including World Cup qualifiers? Is that a fair comment?
Well, I think we've beaten our record of 27 minutes today. So where are we? Let's see. Now, we can vote on the amendment with the removal of the World Cup qualifiers. I think that still leaves us with some difficulty because, particularly with Euro B and Euro C, because of how that
They have,
into
I mean, they have in the past been linked to the World Cup qualifiers. So, although we're talking about the World Cup qualifiers as the final tournament, we've had a link between 2012 to 2016. So
I still get back to where I was before, and that is that we should spend a little time on this. I don't think we need to spend too long on it and then to come back to the meeting. But I think we can take away from here that we do want to, I think, increase from 4 to 6. And on that basis, again, because of these technicalities, it would be a pity if we approve something here which isn't going to get through the regulations and cause problems with the RLEF. So what I'd like to propose is that we take forward the proposition that we increase the figure of 4 to 6, which then picks up that we consider the legality of compliance with the RLEF rules, then come back to the members with a resolution that can be taken without the need for an annual general meeting, can be dealt with as we've dealt with previous cases. Name agrees. Brian, are you happy with that? Yeah. Serbia, are you happy with that? Okay, so can I just ask the meeting if they're happy with that proposal?
Yeah.
All those in favour, please.
Yeah.
Sorry, I think Adrian wants to speak. Do you want to speak, Adrian?
So just to clarify now, you're saying 6 domestic instead of 10 players?
No, what we're saying is that we move to an increase in the numbers.
Yeah.
If we are able to recommend this formally to the members, subject to doing some work on compliance with the Rugby League International Federation rules, so that we know that we can implement that as widely as possible.
but the general proposition is that there will be a minimum of 6. That's the general agreement that people have had. But as the chairman said, more work on the exact wording to see which competitions are affected and whether there's any work on the domestic quota.
So we've had the 2 proposals withdrawn. So that is now the proposition before you. And I don't know where I've just raised the query. Are you happy that we move ahead then on that basis? And we will get back to you within hopefully 8 to 12 weeks. Is it 8 weeks? Okay. Everybody happy with that? Thank you. So, item 8 on the agenda is the financial report to Council. So I'd like to ask Graham Thompson, who's the chairman of FAR, to report to you on this.
This was always going to be brief, and I'm the interim chairman of FAR, but given that we're running over time, it may be briefer brief. There aren't that many slides. I'm going to let them speak to themselves rather than read out what's on the slide, and just potentially try and highlight some key facets. So, on the first slide here, you see for 2016 our income and expenditure. I would highlight that in 2015, the income was higher from the RLEF due to the fact that we had a European Championship. So that's to explain as to why that figure. The RFL stayed at the same level, but the grant from RLEF was affected by the European Championship. I would also draw to your attention that the grants in terms of European obviously a significant change there, and that reflected the grant that Danny and his team were successful in obtaining from the European Union in that respect. Does anyone have any questions on slide 1? Slide 2, please. Slide 2 is a pie chart representation of slide 1 in effect, just to give you a more, for those of you who are more easier with visual representations of the same numbers. So you can see there where, again, the grants in 2016 were hugely increased, representing the green aspect compared to a relatively smaller green in 2015 in that regard. Does anyone have any questions on slide 2? Slide 3, please. Slide 3 represents our balance sheet. Again, I'll just give you 30 seconds to take down the readings on the right-hand side. What I would draw your attention here to is a significant reduction in our creditors. That is in effect the main creditor of the Rugby Football League, obviously England. In effect, we have over the years, the Rugby Football League has been very supportive towards our financial systems, and in effect the RFL is a very helpful bank in terms of helping us with cash flow. So when you're dealing with grants, which you can see coming at certain times, sometimes they don't always match up as to when you actually need to spend the money and required to do certain tournaments on. So over the years we have actually built up quite a lot of credit with the RFL, and particularly due to the World Cup qualifying situation where monies was coming from RLEF to RLEF, we are able to now repay a large percentage of that and reduce our credit. I have to say that we know that the RFL will still continue to help us with our cash flow situation, knowledgeable that we have a very sustainable grant system in many regards. So that is the one significant aspect I would draw your attention to on this slide, along with the right-hand side bullet points. Does anyone have any questions on that slide? Next slide, please. I think I would just highlight here that we actually completed our first full audit, the Rugby League European Federation. You know, we're very keen amongst our member associations to have good governance, and whilst it did cost some extra money, we felt that we needed to show good leadership in this area, and therefore Hayes McIntyre were engaged to run a full audit for the first ever time. Does anybody have any questions on that slide? And it is the final one, I think. One more, sorry. Oh, one more. It's an update. So it speaks for itself in many regards. Any question on that slide or the full presentation? Thank you for your attention.
Item 9 on the agenda is the appointment of auditors. As Graham mentioned, Hayes McIntyre carried out the audit last year. They've done a good job at a very reasonable price. So I would ask the meeting to approve the reappointment of Hayes McIntyre as auditors for the ensuing year, and permit the board of RLEF to fix their remuneration for that period. So, everyone in favour of that, please? Please show. Anybody against their appointment? You're against. So that brings us then to any other business. As Is there anybody anything that they would like to bring to the meeting at this stage? Now the final piece on the agenda is our next meeting, before we can then go and watch some rugby. Now, of course, there has been a... we have had the question of the next place being put out to tender. The results of that tender are now out, and I'd asked Danny just to report on that for the meeting, so that you'll know where we're going next year.
We had 5 expressions of interest for the 2018 Congress. Just a brief background, we as a group and the members decided in 2014 that it would be a positive step for the RLEF to increase its European dimension and to showcase many of the organisations that are our members, to circulate the Congress around Europe. So we encourage every member, we pay, so we encourage every member to put in bids for future Congresses. We've had a wide range of applications over the last few years, and it's a sign of the increasing capacity of certain countries that they're now confident enough to submit a bid. That's a good sign, but we always encourage more. We encourage our full members, especially who've got more volunteer and staff capacity than other members, but we really want to circulate the Congress around the countries. So, having said that, we did receive 2 submissions that were compliant, and we have the board has decided that the 2018 Congress will be in Serbia again, and the reason for this is that the Serbian proposition was built around the Under-19 2018 European Championship. So the Congress will be around the weekend of the final, 10th to the 12th of August 2018. I will be distributing the tender rules and schedule for the 2019 Congress before the end of the year. So
thank you again to Serbia for that. But if I could just add my endorsement to what Danny says, it's great to be going round to new places, and we would encourage everyone to consider putting their countries forward. We certainly had some number of expressions of interest, some of which we're not proceeding with, but it is good, and it shows the health of the organisation. So, just to conclude, I'd like to thank everybody for their attendance and for the contributions and the good debate in relation to the squash sizes. Particularly thank again Serbia for their organisation, and we'll now get on to the next part, which is seeing some rugby league. Thank you very much.
we have to do the photo now as well. So.
Where would you like to do?
Danny, can I have 5 minutes just to explain everyone that we as Phil would like to propose some ideas, the ones that we showed today at the meeting. We'll express all the presentation we made in words, so make some good proposal to all RLEF members to approve and take another step forward for development if everyone agrees in terms of accepting these proposals that we made.
Do you want to send them?
Yes.
And then we can...
And we can make circulated and vote as a Eurotag so to take some action for development.
Send them to me.
I think most of them, they were this morning at the meeting, so they know what I'm talking about. The ones that were not there, they can read a formal proposal to RLEF members, so we can move on with ideas that for us as Italian Rugby League Federation are vital to develop the rugby league in not just in one country, but all around Europe.
Okay.
Thanks.
Right, so we need to line up now. Where do you want to play now?
No. You
In the middle.
It's different proposal I made this morning with the presentation.
Yes.